on this episode of Dr. J's Office Hours.
My film was my medicine because these were women who looked like me that I admired telling me it's not about us, it's about you, and it's about you defining who you are. It's not about you looking at these images. We recognize that these images are there and we're aware that they're there, but you need to find yourself, your confidence in you. So I feel like doing my film was literally the first part of me really taking the medicine that I needed just for me and not realizing that other women needed that same medicine as well. And so that's how the film really took off.
Dr. V, what's up, sis?
What's going on? I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, man. Thank you so much for your time. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. It's a long time coming. There's a lot happened in your life that I just want to know more about. You're doing so many amazing things in the world. And I would love for our listeners to hear your story and to share in your greatness. So the first question that I have is, can you tell me a story about a defining moment in your life that you feel brought you to where you are today?
I think the single most defining moment of my life and my career that brought me to this place had to have been when I woke up and looked in the mirror and could not smile or blink my eyes. After pursuing, wanting to be on camera, wanting to pursue a career as a journalist on camera, and doing all the things that I need to do, I experienced an earache for 3 days, and then 48 hours later, my right eye could not close or open, and I could not smile, and I did not know who the person was who was staring back at me. And this was back in 2014. That moment was surreal to me because for so long I know what I look like in the morning. And so suffering and going through the journey of healing and discovery, specifically after experiencing sudden facial paralysis, was absolutely life-changing. And for me, I'm here now after picking myself back up again after I had gone to school, gotten my bachelor's, earned my master's. I had produced an award-winning documentary. I had pursued a career in television and production. I was living in LA, living my best life, but life had come to a standstill for me in my personal life. So I thought I was just going to pivot and move to LA and then just move to New York. God had a different set of plans for me. He sat me down. And in that moment, this was literally a week before I had interviews with NBC Universal and CNN in New York, thinking that I was just going to move to New York from LA. And home was Rhode Island at the time. And just before those meetings that I had, God sat me down. And I woke up unable to smile or blink. And when I cried, one tear came from my eye. And that was a life-changing moment for me after pursuing my master's in broadcast journalism. And you know what that is. You were part of that journey. And that means that you're on camera pursuing my job on camera. You know, having my demo reels, putting together my video reels of my talent, putting together stories and packages and things like that, and also presenting myself in some kind of way. And then when I look in the mirror, it's like I look completely different. And so that moment brought me to a place where I had to reflect on why is this happening to me and what is the meaning and purpose behind this. And in going through this, a lot of times people talk about, oh, the pandemic is a quarantine. I was in my own quarantine because I did not go outside. I had very few visitors because I knew in my heart and in my spirit and in my faith that this was just an attack, right? And so this was a setback for a setup, but I had to understand what the meaning and the purpose was. And what I found in that journey is that although I had really accomplished a number of different things, I still was carrying a certain level of low self-esteem dropped, I literally sounded like that. Like when you hear the song through the wire, you can hear his articulation of his words, and his mouth was completely disfigured, and he had to go through surgery, right? I sounded like that. And then I was sitting there and praying, like, why is this happening to me? And I literally heard this word Lord tell me, because you're not using your gift. Your gift was not to be on the camera. Your gift was to be on this platform. And I had wasted a lot of time not pursuing that gift. And so I said, Lord, if you give me another chance, another opportunity, I don't care if my eyes blink or not, and just give me another chance, and I'll pursue this thing with everything. And so that's what I did. And so I've been taking baby steps to reestablish who I am. And the first step was actually going back to school to pursue my doctorate. And that was the first open door. I was looking for work, looking for opportunities, looking for everything that I could possibly do in that moment, and nothing happened. But God opened the door wide open for me to pursue my doctorate at no cost to me, fully paid for in full. So that single defining moment was really where I began to
And what do you feel was the reason why you wanted to be on camera? As you had to sit down and think, you felt like you were using the gift, or God told you that. Why do you feel that being on camera, that career path, was your gift? What led up to that realization prior to that?
Well, I had always loved entertainment. My father's a musician. I thought I was gonna be a dancer. I really wanted to be Jae M dancer, background dancer. I know all the names of all her background dancers and the evolution of J Lo, all that. Like Tina Landon was her choreographer. Like I know that name to this day. So I wanted to be a dancer, and then if I wasn't gonna be Janet Jackson's background dancer, then I was going to be a fly girl on Living Color. That was gonna be my goal in life. And then subsequently, those things didn't happen, but I just always gravitated towards that. In high school, I was part of a singing group, Mahogany, with my sister and my cousins, and so the performing arts was always just a part of me, and I just didn't know in what facet that was going to be a part of my life, because we were a part of. I was a part of a group that I was going to dance. I started a dance troupe, everything. But then it's like, okay, well, you need to go to college and get a higher education, and that was something for me that had not been done in my family. So I'm first generation college student. And so I knew I had to go to school. So I didn't know how school and entertainment kind of worked hand in hand together at all. So I didn't even know what I was going to major in school. I saw a movie called Two Can Play That Game with Vivica Fox before declaring my major, once I had gotten accepted to St. John's University in New York. And her character was fabulous, and she was successful, and she drove a nice car, had a nice outfit, had a nice man, all that. I was like, and she was a marketing executive. So when I majored in college, I majored in marketing. And then as part of marketing, because typically marketing is a part of the business school, and one of the requirements is economics. I'm not a math girl, economics, all that, too much. So I literally did not do as well as I would have wanted to do my first semester. And then I transitioned to mass communication. And then that's when I started to really hone in my skills. And then from there, that was during the era with 106 and Park and Free and, Lauryn Hill and Erykah Badu, like all of that was happening. And I'm like, I could do that. And then I remember loving so much. BT programming back in the day was just so lit.
Man, the mid to late 90s, early 2000s, that's the golden era.
Was the best. And I grew up loving not only Janet Jackson and want to be a dancer, but I used to see a girl named Ananda Lewis who hosted Teen Summit. And then she went to become a VJ for MTV, but I remember her specifically. I remember BET Tonight with Ed Gordon, and they were just having amazing conversations with with performers and artists, because even back then, I don't think we really looked at them as celebrities. These were artists sharing their gifts, sharing their craft, and speaking to us about their journey and about their stories. So I wanted to do that. I wanted to be like Ananda. So that was a passion of mine. And then fast forward, how I landed at Emerson College was because, you know, my cousin was good friends with Maria Menounos. And he was like, well, if this is what you want to do, you need to go to Emerson, because Maria went to Emerson and she's doing amazing and this, that, and the third. And so I was like, all right, cool. So I always had a passion to be on camera. But by the time I did it, I learned the craft. I excelled at the craft. I got my degree. There was just still a small voice on the inside of me that didn't think that I could do it. And it's so small and so silent, but it made certain decisions for me. That voice made certain decisions for me where I didn't believe myself. And especially because I was natural. Natural is the thing to be now. It was not the thing to be in 2006 when I graduated.
Right.
And so there was this fear that I'm not good enough. So I never stepped in the ring. Like I probably still have them to this day somewhere in a box, but I still have all of my demo reels that I had put hours into this. And then at the same time I did my documentary took off, and that gave me platforms to be on camera at times, right? But I was too scared of rejection. And the rejection component when you're submitting your reel to news directors and you want to be on air and I was too afraid of rejection. So I leaned into the skills that I knew I had that were dope and dynamic. And that's the fact that I just produced an amazing documentary. So I'm going to just lean into this and sit right here. But I never really sent out any of my tapes. I never sent out any of my reels. I had the website up. I had everything together. I had all the components. But I never stepped into the ring until it was kind of like too late. Not too late. Right. It's never too late. But until God sat me down, like, what are you doing? You're applying for jobs here and there to work behind the scenes as a producer, as an associate producer, to pay these bills, because the bills have to be paid. But why are you not pursuing this thing that you've always wanted to do?
And so that's why you feel
and everything.
So that's why you felt you were holding yourself accountable, knowing like when you had that moment when you saw yourself in the mirror and you had some time to reflect, like you weren't trying to blame anybody. You said, no, so this has to be what it is, because I know I didn't do these certain things that I know that I should have, because I was prepared. But I didn't take advantage of all the opportunities that were before me because of self-esteem, self-doubt, imposter syndrome. Like the list can go on and on as we sort of find reasons why we shouldn't do something, when all those reasons are the exact reasons why we should.
Correct. Right. And even in those moments, I was pursuing acting. The reason why Regina King is in my documentary is because I met her and she became my mentor as an actress. And I'll never forget, even one time we were exchanging words with one another via email. She was like, so what about the acting thing? And it's like, oh, well, see what happened was I need a job. So I allowed myself to lean into the things that I was good at confidently, because I just slayed this documentary. I just slayed grad school. I just slayed everything. It's like, okay, I don't have the confidence. And it's like, the way I explain it is that I had confidence from the neck down. Right? But not from the neck up. I'm in my mind, I know, and in my mind, I know I'm smart, but from the neck down, it's like, okay, I could do this, I could produce, I could put together these stories, I could edit, I could shoot, I could do all these things that behind the camera. And the crazy thing, Jay, is that every show that I worked on in LA as a producer or as a associate producer or whatever my title was in those jobs or those gigs, I always ended up on camera. I always
Really?
sit up on camera because, like, My Black is Beautiful, you know, they needed models to model the jeans and the this and the that because of the guest that was Cookie Johnson was debuting her Cookie Johnson jeans. They needed models, so it was me and the two other. Okay, y'all go on camera and do your thing. That was one time. Another time I worked as a production coordinator for a pilot for a show for ABC. And the person hosting the show was Monique. And they needed stand-in. And so here I am in front of the camera again. Promos in front of the camera. In fact, one of the images, kind of interestingly enough, in my life to date, I have worked with 2 Academy Award winners. Not just Regina King, who's Academy Award winner now, but also Matthew Cherry. Because he directed
he did my hair, right? That was the animated thing
that
he did, right?
No, he directed a music video for this artist called Maya. Dr. P knows her. Flower Girl by Masia. Masia is her name.
Okay.
And so they were casting for girls with natural hair. And at the time, natural hair, again, wasn't the thing to be. So as a producer, I knew that was going to be difficult. So I just threw my hat in the ring. And I was like, okay, let me just submit myself. So he produced this video. That's a whole other story. But anyway, he directed this video featuring Dwelle. So I ended up on camera for that. So it's like, and, you know, I've always gotten great feedback. Like when I was a stand-in for Monique, the executive from ABC specifically sought me out to have a conversation with me. He's like, you got it, like just from your look alone and everything. So that was like one of the last projects that I worked on. And then that's when I was like, all right, cool. Let me for real start doing this. And then I literally started doing it towards the tail end where, like, you know, personally, like I hadn't been working and things like that. I met with an agent and everything. And then from there, it was like a few months before I personally made the decision to come back home and kind of figure things out. But while I was in the middle of everything, I'm talking about like the big names that we see, that we hear of now. These are all people that have been a part of my journey and my path. And I never stepped into the ring. So that's why when Sheryl Lee Ralph talks about not giving up on herself, that's how deep it is. There are times and opportunities I'm sure she could have given up on herself. And so when I woke up and it was so deep for me, Jay, to the point where I literally reached out to Marsha, who is former professor from the Department of Journalism at Emerson. And I apologized to her. Like I apologized to my professors who equipped me to do this. And I didn't do what I needed to do with it because I still was dealing with my own internal self-esteem and self-confidence. Even though I had a documentary, even though I had all these things, even though I had been to the White, all that.
So tell me about this documentary. What was the impetus for that, and tell us more about the journey in making that, since it sounds like it was such an impact on your career path thus far.
Yes, so my documentary film, The Souls of Black Girls, is about media images and how it affects the self-esteem and self-confidence of women and girls of color. And that was because it started off for me when I was at St. John's University as an undergraduate student, and I was given the opportunity to do research as a Ronna McNair Scholar. And so my mentor at the time, he saw something in me and encouraged me to do research. So I had done research as a college student just about Black women forgotten and connecting the two, because I was walking around on campus and I wasn't feeling like I was seeing a reflection of women in the media or even around me that looked like me. And subsequently that did a lot to my own self-esteem. And so fast forward, I just decided to lean into that same research. So when it was time for me to do my final master's project, I said, okay, well, I did this project. And at the time I was introduced to Chuck D because my mentor was a mentor to him. And I knew in my gut, I didn't want to interview Chuck D for my written research, but I knew I was going to do something with it. In my gut was telling me I was going to do something with it. I didn't know what. And then when the opportunity came, he was one of the first people that I called. And I was like, hey, I met you a couple of years ago when I was a student and I was doing this research. And so the narrative behind it was because I was that girl who just did not feel good about herself. And I was literally trying to understand why from an academic perspective.
Mm-hmm. And how has it shifted? How did that shift since now that you've done it? Did you gain confidence? Did you have a better understanding of all the whys of why you didn't and what the struggles you had in yourself? And then how did that sort of permeate the rest of your career and telling others about, all the information that you found? Because I'm sure a lot of people had the same feelings, but didn't know why, didn't have the language to express why things were the way they were.
Yeah, I think in doing the research and really seeing how media shapes perceptions of who we are as well as others, and understanding that from having these conversations with women that I love, and then, at Emerson and doing the documentary, I did all the writing, all the shooting, and all the editing. So you know how editing goes. You're looking at that footage over and over and over again. Not only are you editing it together, but you're transcribing it. So I was doing the transcription for all of my content. So when you're hearing women like Jada Pinkett Smith that I admired at the time, and Regina King, and it's like my film was my own medicine. Especially sitting in the booth doing the editing. My film was my medicine, because these were women who looked like me that I admired, telling me it's not about us, it's about you, and it's about you defining who you are. It's not about you looking at these images. We recognize that these images are there and we're aware that they're there, but you need to find yourself, your confidence in you. So I feel like doing my film was literally the first part of me really taking the medicine that I needed just for me, and not realizing that other women needed that same medicine as well. And so that's how the film really took off. But even though I was, it was the start though, because sometimes just the medicine alone doesn't cure it, right? It cures the symptoms, but it doesn't get to the root of it. Right. So after going through my journey in life and career in production, behind the scenes in LA, once facial paralysis happened, it's like, girl, that's where the cure came from. Because I had to uproot what was causing me to feel a kind of way about myself. And I had to uproot rejection over the years, things that I had experienced in my own childhood. I had to come out of agreement with certain things that had just happened to me personally that I was holding on to, but making decisions out of that. I had to uproot what, was making me feel like I wasn't, I had to uproot, for example, just something as simple as makeup was something that makeup was my crutch for so long, because as a young girl, kids are brutal and mean, Jay. And growing up in Brooklyn, my name is Daphne. I was teased and called Daffy Duck for years. And I suffered from hyperpigmentation, which meant that I had dark circles around my eyes. And that did a lot to my self-esteem and self-confidence. So I was wearing makeup at the age of 12, getting in trouble for it, didn't care. Stealing my mother's Mary Kay. And it wasn't until, I was living in LA one time, and I was just sitting by the pool, and I was kind of taking a selfie and everything. And then I just saw myself. It's like for the first time I saw myself the way other people saw me. And that was the start of getting to the root of the issue. You don't see yourself the way other people see you. You're just kind of floating and moving and based on these things, these accolades and your talents, but you're not really seeing yourself the way other people see you and the way God sees you, right? So that was so it's like my film was my medicine. And then from there, it's like, okay, I had to keep going to therapy, So for me, my experience with facial paralysis really was the surgery that needed to happen to really now you can't smile, girl.
Right. Right.
Girl, what you waiting on? Now
Right.
you
It's so
think?
it's so interesting how there is pain in the healing. But in order to heal, you gotta go through that pain in order to get on the other side. It's such a sort of catch-22. Like, nobody wants to feel pain, right? And then in order to heal, you got to get through certain things that are extremely uncomfortable. Like, I'm sure you were probably in your happy place as you were developing and producing your documentary.
Yeah.
But hearing those stories and seeing those women, I'm sure there were some things where you felt, you know how we say I feel attacked. You know what I mean? Like, even though it's not directly at you, but you are starting to see and sort of realize things that you had been sort of trying to navigate for all those years through other people's stories, through the work, through the research, through the numbers, like all the data that you were collecting over that time. It's just like, I'm healing, but man, it's just uncomfortable. Dag, this hurts. Like, and then once you get on the other side, you can then take those tools and apply that to the next thing. And it sounds like the next major thing was your doctoral journey. Could you tell me about sort of what that experience was like, coming off the heels of the amazing documentary, all the accolades of that, the facial paralysis? Now you're at a new chapter in your life where you're trying to dig even deeper into the things that you're passionate about. Where was your healing at that point, and how did it continue throughout that process?
I think that journey alone, like I said, during my journey of healing and recovery, I was very intentional about finding the meaning and the purpose, not pointing the finger at anyone else, but looking internally. And from there, once I finally got it, it was like, okay, God, if you give me another chance, just give me another chance, I'm gonna do it. It's like the scripture where he gave, the parable of the person who was given the many gifts, right? And so, a few of them, utilize their gifts, but there's one person just chose to squander it and just hold it for themselves and not do anything with it. That was me, right? And so I was like, okay, God, if you just give me another chance, another opportunity, I swear I will do it. I will do it. And so I came to the realization, because pursuing my doctorate was something I always wanted to do, even as a Ronald McNair scholar. I had just never went. The journey is typically linear. You go from undergrad and either straight to a doctoral program or straight to a master's, then a doctoral program, but there's never no break for the most part, right? So that's why you see a lot of PhDs who look like us, but they've been a PhD since they was like 25,
Right,
We're coming to the journey later on in life, Jay, right? And so, because typically the trajectory is very linear, there's no breaks. And so I was like, okay, so that was always in my mind. And then at the same time, I was like, okay, what does this next chapter for Daphne look like? And then people started to come to mind that had on-camera careers, but also had their doctorate. And so I thought about people like Mark Lamont Hill, and was a huge, huge part of me trying to put together the framework of what does Daphne's next chapter look like. And the woman, oh my goodness, her name escapes me. She had a show on Fox and it was canceled, but you know who I'm talking about. Melissa Harris Perry.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Melissa,
okay.
So Mark Lamont Hill on camera doing his things, rocking out, so I finally saw myself. It's like, okay, that's what I want to do. And he has a doctorate. Cool. Melissa Harris Perry has her own show. She's rocking it, killing it, and she has her own show. And interestingly enough, how God works in such amazing ways. A seed was planted for me to get to this point, even when I was in LA. The last show that I worked on when I was in LA as an associate producer was the pilot for Monique. And I told you that I had got the attention of an ABC executive. But that show was literally based on it. The whole idea of it was all of these surveys come out. We hear all of these polls that come out and basically testing it on an audience. So say, for example, a recent poll came out that said that pregnant women who take the subway are more tired than pregnant women who take the bus. Let's just say that. So then they
Mm-hmm.
would test it in the audience. Now, the experts that I was in charge of producing, I was in charge of supporting the producers who wrote their scripts. I was in charge of making sure that they had everything okay. The experts who were brought on the show were all PhDs of some sort. They all had a doctorate. So the psychologists we brought on the show had their doctorate. The counseling therapists who came on the show had their doctorate. Whoever we brought on the show as an expert had their doctorate. So for me, I believe that seed was planted in my journey because I kept on referring to that and thinking about that. Like, these are experts in their field, positioning themselves and being specifically and very intentional about how they use their voice and how their voice is heard. And so when I remember those individuals, and so one of the doctors was Dr. Aldewan Tart, who's a relationship expert. He was on the show and he was talent, and I was like, I can do that. Because the one thing that I always said is that, if I ever had a platform for any particular reason or was famous or anything like that, I want it to be because what I have to say matters and is of value and of importance. And so then in the midst of the paralysis and everything and applying for school, I finally was able to see, like, okay, I see how Mark Lamont Hill crafted his career, right? I see how, I don't know all the intricacies, but the outcome is that when you think about Mark Lamont Hill, you think of him as an expert, someone who moderates, someone who is on camera, but at the same time, he's also respected for what he has to say here and there, when he doesn't get himself caught up in controversy, right? Same thing, Melissa Harris Perry at the time had a television talk show and she has her doctorate. And I was like, okay, if I can do that, then this is what I'm going to do. And literally, that's the promise that I made to myself, that I'm going to pursue my doctorate. So I was very intentional throughout my doctoral program not to get caught up, because when you're in a doctoral program, there's so many ways in which people or the academy tries to sway you to go into academia for the sake of other things, but not because of what you really want to do. But I was very intentional with my advisor. I told her, this is a means to an end for me. And all of my work had to make sense. How is this feeding Daphne, the outcome, the brand, beyond this, so that she can position herself as an expert? So that's really where I am. And I'm finally at a place where it's like, okay, I'm planted at a university, at an HBC, which was a desire of my heart. And now I can utilize my research, the things that I've done, my dissertation, my, desire to get the sequel done. Now I'm positioning myself to actually produce work that will subsequently put me in a position where I can be called upon as an expert, the same way Mark Lamont Hill and all of those folks are called upon all the time. That's the goal.
And so what do you want to do with this work? Like if you could sort of have the perfect scenario or an ideal picture of what type of impact you want to make in your community and in the world through your work, what would it be?
I think making a difference and understanding, specifically for young Black women and girls, that your voice is valid in whatever sphere you go. And I want the takeaway to be that I was here, number one. But I want the takeaway to also be that you can do this too. You can push through the challenges that life may bring, and you can do this too. And you can position yourself in such a way where not only does your voice matter, but it's making a difference. It's making a difference in knowledge and scholarship that is so vitally important that other people don't even understand or know about. I did not understand the value of my work. It's like I knew it, but it wasn't until I got into academia and then in the doctoral program for real, and I'm sitting down and I'm in a Black feminist class and I'm seeing what is present as far as media messages and as far as research, connecting the dots and speaking about our issues. It's it's really nothing really there. And that's
Mm.
where I saw myself, because, in the doctoral experience, it's like, how is your work filling in the gap?
Right, right. How you adding to the knowledge
How are you
economy?
adding to the narrative? And I never understood that,
Mm-hmm.
because people were like, oh, your work is so important. I just thought that people were being nice, to be honest. Whether I was at a film
Mm-hmm.
festival, a private screening, or, being asked to come to a college or university and share my work, I didn't understand the significance of it. I did not realize that
Mm.
it was filling in the gap for the lack of scholarship that is not about us. The research studies that are out there that people are referring to or citing, oftentimes decisions are being made based on studies that are coming out. And even right now, I'm teaching research methods. And part of what I'm trying to get my students to understand is, although research is difficult and it is hard and it is labor intensive, the work that we're doing is so important because decision makers are relying on this data to make decisions about us and our communities. So the textbooks that you're seeing in your classrooms, or, research impacts so many decisions that are made on our behalf.
Yeah,
And
research
often,
impacts policies, and policies impact our lives.
exactly. And so many
Mm-hmm.
of the policymakers are relying on research that does not include us oftentimes. Policies are being made about education, our health, that oftentimes does not include our voice and our narrative. And so, if anything, I want to leave a legacy behind that establishes the importance of it, but but it doesn't have to be boring, and you can still make a difference with your voice and the impact that you want to make. And that's really it. Like, I would do this if I got $1 million tomorrow. I would still be doing the work that I do.
And so I'm curious of what your thoughts are in this past Emmys, and how did that make you feel as a woman of color, a Black woman in particular, but because of your work in media has been such a staple throughout your career, um, focused on women. What was the Emmys and the amazing Black women that were getting celebrated for their work? How did that make you feel? Was it more so like window dressing by the Academy? Was it something where you feel that the needle is moving? Is the culture moving forward? What was your sort of initial reaction to it, as someone who's an expert in this work?
I think the needle is moving forward, and I think it's so important because, specifically when the Emmys, we're constantly seeing award shows that are validating our gifts and our talents, even though we don't need the validation. We know we're great, right? Shirley Ralph didn't need the
Mhm.
validation of the Emmys, but it solidified her in such a way where she's had a career for 50 plus years at this point. She was an original dream girl, and only now is she getting that level of validation, right? And
Mhm.
so for us, it's important because it is putting a stamp on the fact that the talent of Black women is important and vital and should be recognized. But
Mhm.
even more so, I'm more excited about the women behind the scenes who are also getting recognized as well, right? And
Mhm.
so you think about Cheryl Lee Ralph, for example, and just, what Jackie Harry had shared as far as her, they wanted Cheryl Lee Ralph to be the character that she played on 227, and she won in that same category. And she spoke about how it's been 35 years and no one who looks like me has come after me until now, and
Mhm.
only now is there the second.
Mhm.
As much as we can rejoice about that, it's still problematic that we're only a second. But I think that the needle has changed because, just as we were talking about research and how it's important for us to be conducting research that looks like at our communities, that infrastructure is important because policies are made from research. The same is true for the entertainment industry. There are people in positions of power that sit on these committees, and it was so important. One of the things I remembered in Sheryl Lee Ralph's speech, which a lot of people, I mean, her speech was just so dynamic and one of a kind, like no one else, first and foremost. But one of the things that people don't know on the outside looking in, because typically during a speech, no one really is making reference to, but she said, and thank you to everyone who voted for me. That opened up and gave the audience a glimpse into what really happens behind the scenes. These Oscars and these Grammys and these Emmys are going to people who are being voted on by members who are a part of the Academy. Members, you have to be a part of the Emmy Association, the organization. It's an organization. So the same way that you're voting for your mayor or your Senate is the same way that there are certain people in positions of power in entertainment who are to vote on who gets the final prize. So it's no coincidence, for example, that Felicia Butterfield was an executive at the Grammys when now so many women in the last 2 cycles of winning the Grammys, including Beyonce, won in categories in which they rightfully deserve because the infrastructure has shifted. Felicia, along with her counterparts, were people of color. A friend of mine, Jay Ivy, sits on the board. So these are people who are being strategically placed in positions of power at the Grammy Association to ensure that certain people are being recognized, because before it was very much whitewashed. So as we continue to move into those positions and take ownership of the power, that's how we're going to see that shift, which is why Sheryl Lee Ralph is really only the second person. There's a structure in place that has kept it that way for so long. And so as much as I rejoice, it's also a reminder of, wow, we still have so much more work to do. Right?
Yeah, we definitely do. And it's interesting with you as well, is because I feel like you're making an impact on 2 fronts. And I'm sure you're aware of this, but for one, there are not many people of color with doctorate degrees. That's one. Then it gets even smaller when you start talking about Black women, right? And then it gets even smaller when you're talking about Black women who have doctorates that are actually in the classroom cultivating and helping to shape and mentor and guide the next generation of thinkers, right? And then you're trying to mentor and mold them on the way of doing other things in media that is helping to push the cause forward. So how does that feel to be on both ends, right? Because it's like you are a pioneer on both ends, or making, incredible ripples, not only in media but also, in education.
I feel like I'm just getting started, Jay. That's really how I feel. Like I don't feel like I've done anything, even though I know I have. Right?
Yeah,
and
you definitely have.
Yeah, I know I have. I just feel like I'm finally getting started. Ciao. Really, like I feel like I'm just getting started. That's how I feel. I feel like I'm just getting started. It's like I'm finally in a place in my life where I'm finally planting roots somewhere. And now I can blossom from here, because I've been in such a transient state, if you will, right? Graduating from Emerson in 2006, then going to LA, living out there for a little while. And, when you live in LA, it's like you kind of never really settle. You're kind of, it's kind of always like, oh, I could do this, I could do that, or whatever, and then transitioning back home, and then not knowing thinking I was going to go to New York, and then not knowing what I was going to do. And then now getting my doctorate, going to another state to get my doctorate. And it's like, okay, I'm still in this transient space. And now, by the grace of God, here I am. It's like, okay, I'm not trying to accomplish nothing. Like, I'm here. I've arrived here. I'm here as Dr. Daphne Valerius. And I don't have to prove to myself.
Wait. Can you say that again? I'm here as who?
I am here as Dr. Daphne Valerius.
Yes.
Like, I feel like I finally arrived at this place. Mm-hmm. And now I can really make the moves that I was always trying to do. I was always kind of, bursting at the seams wanting to do this. So doing the sequel to my documentary is not something I came up with just now. I've been wanting to do this. It's like now I'm finally settled as Dr. Daphne Valerius, and I'm just about to get popping. I really, man.
I love it.
I love it. And I think just going through the journey that I've been through, even with the film, like no one even knows about my original film, to be quite honest with you, because at the time that it was done and, the means in which I did it, it was a student project, a student film. That film didn't air on television until 9 years later in collaboration with the Obama administration and Aspire TV. And that was just by chance, so God has had his hands in my journey that brought me here. So now it's like, okay, I'm finally here. I'm not pressed to go anywhere else. This is what we're doing. So I'm excited because I'm thankful because I do have students from the moment they meet me for the very first time, everything that I have done, working on different, productions and the experiences that I did have in LA. And those things matter to them because it's like, oh my gosh, you've done something beyond just our local television station here in North Carolina. Like, what it's like to work with big people and names. So that feels good. And it helps to a certain degree that I look just like them. So sometimes I'm walking on campus and people think that I'm a student. Mm-hmm, and so that's gratifying. And then I can, actually show them my work. I can actually show them, my Bible, the printout of my documentary. I can use that as examples to bring into the classroom. I can, right now, as I'm teaching research methods, I'm combining the fact that I know that I have the unique gift of being able to interpret complicated research and communicate it in layman's terms. That's what you do as a journalist, number one. And so being able to show them they can do the same thing and breaking down research to layman's terms to where they can see themselves. So I'm really thankful for that. And, but at the same time too, I get into them like, look, this is not for kids and we're not here to play. Your kids sent you here to get an education and you're going to do this. And just because I look like you and I'm all, don't get it twisted because that assignment is still due at 11:59 p.m. Right?
Right.
So having setting that bar and an expectation that I expect them to show up. So I think, like I said, I'm just getting started. I think I'm uniquely positioned to do something that I've really always wanted to do, especially in putting together the sequel. I've always wanted to take a young person with me on that journey, and I'm positioned to do that. Man, I just feel like I'm just getting started. I feel like I've done nothing.
I love it.
I just feel like I've done like little bits and pieces. I think that, the first half of my life, like, God kind of gave me a preview of what's to come. So now it's like, I'm in there. Now we ready. It's go time.
It's go time. And so what advice would you give the Daphne that was just coming out of the healing process of your facial paralysis? Because I feel like now where you are, I'm not sure that you could have seen where you are now in that moment, and you've come so far. What advice would you give to her in this chapter in your life, looking back then?
Ooh, oh my goodness. I would just tell her that, weeping may endure for a night, but joy is coming in the morning. You are going to go through this. You're going to weep. You're going to cry. but you're going to get through this and you're going to arrive on the other side in such a way that you never thought possible. And God is going to honor the desires of your heart, and He's going to ensure that provision is made for the promise that you made to Him. And to lean into that. And the biggest lesson that I've learned, Jay, and I think you and I have had this conversation, but when God is in it, He's going to open up the door and there will be no sorrow added to it. It will be hard. It won't be easy. But when the provision is made, that's when you know you're on the right track. So it may not look like it's going to work out, but it will. And I think only now am I feeling and experiencing just the manifestation of just my obedience and not giving up on myself, like Cheryl Ralph said. And so only now am I seeing bits and pieces of it in my personal life as well as in my professional life. Like only now am I seeing it. And so I would just tell her to keep pushing, that you will have something to smile about on the other side of this. You will have so much more to smile about on the other side of this. That's definitely what I would tell her.
And what books would you recommend for our listeners to read that made an impact in your life that you think that would be helpful for them to become their best selves in whatever chapter or season in their life that they're in?
And I think for me, as the adult version of Daphne, one of the books that is anything bell hooks, anything with bell hooks is vital to your education. So if you have not heard of bell hooks, look her up. She recently passed, and her work is at the root of so many of us who are Black female scholars. She set the path for us from the very beginning, and I wasn't introduced to bell hooks up until very recently when I was pursuing my doctorate. The second book that was instrumental for me and really made a difference, and I refer to it even in my work, is The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. That was the first book where I was able to see a reflection of who I am and just the challenges that I was going through when I didn't feel good about myself. I saw that within her character. And that character just wanted the bluest eyes. She wanted the bluest eyes. And so it was a book that really shaped my progress. And it's, I did it for that girl in that book too, And so that was a book that I saw where I first saw myself. And then the third book is just the Word of God. The Bible is truly something that I refer to. I wasn't raised, in the church or anything like that, but in my journey, I've had to find God for myself. And I lean on that and His Word as much as I can, especially in the darkest of hours that I've been through in my journey and in my life. My obedience comes from knowing that He has promises. It's a book of promises. That's how I look at the Word of God. It's a book of promises that He has for me. And I put my name in the book where He says that this is a promise that I have for you, Daphne. As long as you take hold of my word and keep it in your heart. And so those are the three books that I would definitely. You don't have to read it every day, but have it available to you at all times.
And for my final question, if you were to have dinner with anyone, alive or who has transitioned, who would it be? Who would it be and why?
Oh, man. Jay. Oh, my goodness. Dead or alive? My uncle. My Uncle Melik's He was my favorite uncle, my mother's brother. Oh my God, you're gonna make me cry. My mother's brother, Melix Regis, who passed away when I had just after my first year of college. I would love to see him. We used to write letters. I was one of the last of my uncle's nieces to write to him in letters because he had gotten incarcerated and then he was later deported. So this all happened when I was starting school at St. John's University, and he was so scared. I read it in a letter that he wrote. Like I have a lot of his letters from prison that I'll read every now and again. And when I revisited it, I saw he was scared and he was nervous because no one had gone to college in my family. So, and he said that when I graduated, he was going to give me a nice black dress. So I would have a conversation with him. And I know he's proud of me, but he didn't get to see any of it. That's
I'm sure he is so proud.
Yeah.
So proud. And you just
Jae. Jae, I was not supposed to come on here and cry. But yeah, that's who I would have.
It's all love, sis. It's all love. It's all love.
Yeah, and I know he will be proud.
He would. He would.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this amazing conversation.
Thank you, and I'm so proud of you for all that you have done.
Yes, we are making strides together.
Right? As iron sharpens iron.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm just so proud of you and this platform and this podcast and the lives that you're changing and the representation of it all and what it means for especially a young Black boy who looks like you to be Dr. J, including your son as well as your daughter. And so I'm so proud of you, and I just continue to celebrate you, celebrate this moment with you, this journey with you, and I'll be right here whenever you need me.
Thank you. I feel it. Thank you
whenever
so much.
You need me. It's a blessing and a privilege, Doc.
Yes, Doc. Yes, say it again.
Blessing and a privilege, Doc. We did that.
Yes, we did it. Thanks for listening. For more amazing content and episode updates, be sure to subscribe. Also, if you like notes from this episode and more, head over to drjwilliams.com and download Dr. J's Gems. The notes include a breakdown of the conversation, key concepts, and helpful resources, exclusively from our Office Hours fam. So come through. You never know. You just might learn something new. Talk to you soon. Peace.